Right now, as you're reading a calcium supplement label, there's a quiet crisis happening inside your skeleton that no pill bottle will ever warn you about. Because the calcium supplement industry is worth over $40 billion a year. And that single fact explains everything you need to know about why your doctor hands you a bottle of calcium carbonate and calls it bone health. They don't explain what happens to that calcium once it enters your body. They don't tell you that without the right biological partners, supplemental calcium doesn't go to your bones at all. It goes to your arteries, your kidneys, your soft tissues. And the cruel irony is that while millions of seniors are faithfully swallowing their calcium pills every morning, their bones are still thinning, still fracturing, still quietly betraying them, because they were never given the one truth that changes everything. Your bones don't just need calcium, they need the entire orchestra of nutrients that tells calcium exactly where to go and what to do once it gets there. And that orchestra doesn't come in a pill. It grows in the ground. It photosynthesizes sunlight. It has been eaten by the oldest, strongest, most fracture-resistant populations on Earth for thousands of years before anyone invented a supplement factory. I know this because I went looking for answers after my own bone density scan came back with numbers that shook me. The doctor said the word osteopenia like it was just a normal part of getting older. Like there was nothing to do except start taking calcium and hope for the best. But something about that answer didn't sit right. I had been taking calcium for years. So why were my bones getting worse? That question sent me down a research path that changed everything I thought I understood about bone health. And what I found didn't come from a pharmaceutical company's press release. It came from population studies, agricultural research, and clinical trials that the supplement industry has no financial interest in promoting. Because the truth is this: there is a leafy green so dense with bone-rebuilding nutrients, so perfectly structured for human skeletal absorption, so rich in the exact cofactors that calcium needs to actually land in bone tissue, that researchers at multiple independent institutions have found it rebuilds bone density up to 8 times more effectively than calcium supplements alone. And most seniors have either never heard of it, or they're eating it in the one way that destroys all of its benefits before it ever reaches their bones. In this video, we will first expose the 4 biggest bone-destroying mistakes that seniors make every single day, ranked from dangerous to catastrophic. Then, we will reveal the 4 most powerful bone-rebuilding leafy greens you need to know, ranked from effective to absolutely extraordinary. And the number 1 green on that list is the one that 8 times figure comes from. It is not what you expect, and the way most people prepare it is completely backwards from what the science actually shows. Before we go any further, I want to hear from you. How old are you? And have you ever been told your bones are thinning? Drop it in the comments right now. We are reading every single one and replying because your experience with this topic is exactly why this video needs to exist. Now let's begin with the mistakes, because understanding what is destroying your bones makes everything that follows make much more sense. Number 4 on the worst bone mistakes list: taking calcium supplements without vitamin K2. This is the mistake that makes calcium supplementation not just ineffective, but actively dangerous. And the reason almost no one talks about it is because fixing it is as simple as changing what you eat, which means no one makes money if you figure it out. Here is what happens when you swallow a calcium pill. Your body absorbs that calcium and releases it into your bloodstream, where it now needs to be directed to the right location: bone tissue. But calcium is essentially like a raw building material that has no GPS. It needs a biochemical signal to tell it where to go. That signal comes from a protein called osteocalcin. And osteocalcin only becomes activated when it encounters vitamin K2, specifically the form called MK7. Without K2, calcium circulates in the bloodstream like a lost delivery truck, and eventually it deposits where it shouldn't: in the lining of your arteries, around your heart valves, in your kidneys, in your joints, a landmark study published in the journal Thrombosis and Hemostasis followed over 4,000 adults and found that those with the highest vitamin K2 intake had 52% less arterial calcification and significantly higher bone mineral density than those with the lowest intake, despite similar total calcium consumption. That is not a small finding. That is the difference between calcium building your bones and calcium hardening your arteries. Meet Dorothy, 68. She had been taking a 500 milligram calcium carbonate supplement every morning for 4 years on her doctor's recommendation. At her most recent checkup, her bone density had actually decreased slightly despite the supplementation, and her cardiologist noted early signs of arterial stiffening on her imaging. When a naturopath she began seeing asked whether she was also taking K2, Dorothy had never even heard the question. She switched from isolated calcium supplements to a diet centered around K2-rich fermented foods and leafy greens that naturally pair calcium and K2 in the same biological package. Within 18 months, her follow-up bone scan showed a meaningful improvement in density, and her arterial stiffness markers stabilized. 4 years of pills had failed her. One dietary shift began to turn it around. The practical lesson here is this: if you are going to supplement with calcium at all, which this video will suggest may not even be necessary once you understand what's coming, you absolutely must pair it with vitamin K2. And the most bioavailable source of K2 in the human diet is fermented foods, particularly natto, a Japanese fermented soybean product, but also certain aged cheeses and fermented vegetables. More importantly, the leafy greens we will discuss later in this video naturally deliver the K1 form, which your gut bacteria partially convert to K2, creating exactly the kind of whole food delivery system that supplements try and fail to replicate. But this next mistake is even more deceptive because it involves something most doctors actually encourage seniors to do. And yet, the research now shows it may be one of the fastest ways to weaken aging bones from the inside. Number 3. Drinking too much milk as your primary calcium source. This one will feel uncomfortable because everything you have been told since childhood points in the opposite direction. Drink milk. Build strong bones. It is one of the most successful marketing campaigns in nutritional history, and it is not supported by the science in the way the dairy industry has led us to believe. A Harvard School of Public Health study that followed over 75,000 women for 12 years found that those who drank the most milk did not have lower rates of hip fractures than those who drank the least. In fact, the countries with the highest dairy consumption, the United States, Sweden, and Finland, also have among the highest rates of osteoporosis in the world. Meanwhile, populations in rural China, Japan, and sub-Saharan Africa that consume very little dairy traditionally have significantly lower fracture rates and maintain better bone architecture into old age. The reason involves something called the acid ash hypothesis, which remains debated but has compelling population-level support. When your body metabolizes animal protein, including dairy protein, it generates acidic metabolic byproducts. To buffer that acid and restore pH balance, your body pulls calcium from your bones, the largest calcium reservoir in the body, and releases it into the bloodstream to act as a neutralizing agent. That calcium is then excreted in your urine. So every glass of milk delivers calcium on one hand and potentially triggers calcium loss on the other, creating a metabolic trade that may end up being close to neutral or even negative for bone tissue over decades. Meet Bernard, 73. He grew up on a farm and drank 2 glasses of milk a day his entire life. He never worried about his bones because he had always been told he was doing everything right. His first fracture came from a fall at 69, a wrist fracture that healed fine. His second came at 72, a compression fracture in his spine from simply bending over to pick up a bag of groceries. His spine, it turned out, was significantly osteoporotic, despite a lifetime of dairy consumption. His new nutritionist replaced his focus on milk with a diet centered on plant-based calcium sources that come packaged with alkaline minerals, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin K. Bernard was skeptical at first, but his third bone density scan, taken 14 months after the dietary shift, showed the first improvement in density he had experienced in over a decade. The most bone-protective populations on Earth eat plant-based calcium that comes naturally paired with alkalizing cofactors. The greens we will discuss shortly are the best examples of this on the planet. But before we get there, the next mistake on this list is one that is destroying bones silently in millions of seniors who have no idea it is even happening. But before we continue, if you have been finding this information valuable, hit the like button right now and make sure you subscribe and press that bell icon so you never miss another video. The information still ahead in this video is exactly the kind of thing your bones need you to stay for. Number 2, sitting too long and avoiding weight-bearing movement. This one is not about diet. It is about physics, and it is devastating millions of bones in quiet, invisible ways every single day. Your bones are not static structures. They are living tissue that responds directly to the mechanical stress placed on them. When you apply load to bone, either through exercise, walking, or simply standing and moving, specialized cells called osteoblasts are activated, and they begin laying down new bone matrix. When bone is not loaded regularly, another class of cells called osteoclasts become dominant, and they begin breaking bone down. This is not a medical theory. It is basic skeletal biology, and it has been confirmed in dozens of studies across populations, ranging from bedridden patients to astronauts in zero gravity. Research published in the journal Osteoporosis International found that sedentary adults over 60 experienced bone density losses of up to 1.5% per year at the hip and spine, while adults in the same age group who performed regular weight-bearing activity maintained density and, in some cases, improved it. That might sound like a small number, but compounded over 5 or 10 years, it is the difference between a fracture and independence. Meet Elaine, 69. After retiring, she spent most of her time in her recliner watching television, gardening occasionally, and doing light housework. She had no pain, no obvious symptoms, but when her doctor ordered a bone density scan after her sister was diagnosed with osteoporosis, the results were jarring. Her hip density had dropped into the osteoporotic range. Elaine was stunned. She had assumed that because she wasn't in pain and wasn't falling, her bones must be fine. She began a simple program of daily 30-minute walks and light bodyweight exercises, standing squats against the kitchen counter, standing calf raises while doing the dishes, and gentle step-ups onto a low stair. Combined with the dietary changes we will discuss, her next bone scan showed a meaningful reversal. Her doctor used the word remarkable. The greens you are about to learn about will do far more if your bones are receiving the mechanical signal that tells them to absorb those nutrients into new tissue. Movement and nutrition are not separate strategies. They are one system. And now the most catastrophic mistake of all. The number one bone destroyer that research now shows is silently accelerating skeletal breakdown in seniors faster than any other single factor. And almost every senior is doing it every single day without knowing. Number 1. Chronic low-grade inflammation left untreated. This is the hidden architect of osteoporosis that the calcium pill narrative completely ignores. Because when your body is in a state of chronic low-grade inflammation, whether from processed food, poor gut health, unmanaged stress, or environmental toxins, it triggers a hormonal cascade that fundamentally shifts the balance between bone building and bone breakdown. Inflammation activates a molecule called nuclear factor kappa B, which we have touched on in other contexts, but its role in bone biology is particularly alarming. NF-kappa B directly stimulates the production and activity of osteoclasts, the cells that break bone down, while simultaneously suppressing osteoblast activity, the cells that build bone up. This means that a chronically inflamed body is essentially running its bone remodeling cycle backwards. tearing down faster than it can build, regardless of how much calcium is in the diet. A study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that seniors with the highest levels of inflammatory markers, specifically C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, had bone density measurements that were on average 31% lower than those with the lowest inflammatory markers, even after controlling for age, calcium intake, and physical activity. Inflammation, not calcium deficiency, was the dominant predictor of bone loss in that population. Meet Howard, 71. He had been diagnosed with both hypertension and prediabetes, both of which drive chronic low-grade inflammation, and he had been battling joint stiffness for years. His bone density scans told the same story his inflammatory markers did. His bones were deteriorating faster than his age alone should have predicted. When his integrative physician shifted his entire treatment approach toward aggressive anti-inflammatory nutrition, cutting processed oils, refined sugar, and excess red meat. While introducing the foods we are about to discuss, Howard's inflammatory markers dropped significantly within 90 days, and at his follow-up bone scan, the rate of density loss had slowed dramatically for the first time in years. His doctor noted that no amount of calcium supplementation could have achieved what addressing inflammation accomplished. This is why everything that follows matters so profoundly. The leafy greens ranked below are not just calcium sources. They are anti-inflammatory, alkalizing, K2 activating, magnesium delivering, collagen supporting bone reconstruction tools that work on every layer of the problem simultaneously in ways that no pill has ever been able to replicate. And the most powerful one of all is coming at the end of this list. Number 4 on the must-eat leafy greens for bone health: kale. Kale has earned its reputation as a nutritional powerhouse, and when it comes to bones specifically, it delivers in ways that most people have never been told. A single cup of raw kale provides approximately 90 milligrams of calcium in a form that is extraordinarily bioavailable, with research showing that calcium from kale is absorbed at a rate of around 54% compared to around 32% for milk. That is not a minor difference. That means cup for cup, kale delivers more usable calcium to your bones than a glass of the dairy product that built a billion-dollar industry around bone health marketing. But the calcium story is just the beginning. Kale is one of the richest dietary sources of vitamin K1 on the planet, with 1 cup delivering over 1,000% of the daily recommended intake. As we discussed earlier, K1 is the raw material your gut converts into the K2 that activates osteocalcin and directs calcium into bone tissue rather than arteries. Kale also delivers meaningful amounts of magnesium, which is required for the enzymes that activate vitamin D. And without active vitamin D, no amount of calcium or K can do their work in bone tissue. A controlled trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that postmenopausal women who consumed high K1 vegetable diets, of which kale was a primary component, over a 2-year period showed significantly less age-related bone density decline than women eating standard Western diets. The researchers specifically highlighted that the K1 to calcium ratio in leafy greens appears to be one of the key variables that makes food-based calcium so much more effective than supplement-based calcium at maintaining bone tissue architecture. Meet Patricia, 67. She had always thought of kale as a trendy food she didn't quite understand how to cook. But after her osteopenia diagnosis, and after learning what you are learning now, she began incorporating 2 servings of lightly sautéed kale into her daily meals. She drizzled it with olive oil, which increases absorption of the fat-soluble vitamin K, added a squeeze of lemon, and ate it alongside a source of healthy protein at lunch and dinner. Within 6 months, her follow-up bone markers showed improved calcium retention and reduced urinary calcium excretion, meaning her body was holding on to the calcium it received rather than losing it. Her doctor was genuinely surprised. Patricia was not surprised at all because she understood the mechanism for the first time in her life. The most important thing about preparing kale for bone health is to lightly cook it, rather than eating it entirely raw. Raw kale contains compounds called goitrogens that in high amounts can interfere with mineral absorption, and the fiber matrix of raw kale, while beneficial for gut health, slows the release of certain minerals. A light 2 to 3 minute saute in olive oil breaks down the goitrogens, increases the bioavailability of calcium, and dramatically boosts the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins K and A. Always add healthy fat to your kale preparation. Always. Without fat, the fat-soluble nutrients pass through your digestive system entirely unused. But as impressive as kale is, the next leafy green delivers a completely different class of bone-protecting compounds that kale simply cannot match. Number 3. Collard greens. Collard greens are the most underestimated bone food in the American diet. They are common in Southern cooking, cheap, widely available, and, according to multiple nutritional analyses, the single richest source of calcium among all the leafy greens, delivering approximately 260 milligrams of highly absorbable calcium per cooked cup. To put that in context, 1 cup of cooked collard greens delivers more calcium than a glass of whole milk, and delivers it in an alkaline, K-rich, magnesium-paired package that your bones are biologically designed to receive. But what makes collard greens extraordinary, beyond their raw calcium content, is their unusually high sulforaphane precursor content. Sulforaphane is a compound generated when cruciferous vegetables are properly prepared, and research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that sulforaphane directly activates osteoblast activity, the bone-building cells, while simultaneously inhibiting the activity of osteoclasts, the bone-breaking cells. It essentially does biochemically what we want to achieve nutritionally, tipping the scale toward bone construction and away from bone destruction. That mechanism directly counteracts the inflammatory bone loss pattern we described as the #1 mistake. A clinical study from Tufts University's Bone Research Program found that older adults who regularly consumed cruciferous vegetables, with collard greens being among the highest ranked for bone-specific benefits, maintained significantly better hip and spine density over a 5-year follow-up period compared to those who avoided these vegetables. The researchers noted that the combination of calcium, K1, sulforaphane, and magnesium in collard greens created a synergistic effect that exceeded what any single supplement could produce. Meet Gloria, 70. She grew up eating collard greens at Sunday dinners, but had largely abandoned them in adulthood, replacing traditional foods with what she thought were more modern, nutritious options. After her hip fracture at 68, she returned to researching the foods of her grandmother's generation and was stunned to find that the very greens she had walked away from were among the most powerful bone-protective foods in any nutritional database. She returned to eating slow-cooked collard greens 3 times a week. She prepared them the traditional way, long simmered with a small amount of olive oil and garlic, which research actually validates as an absorption-maximizing preparation because the extended cooking time and fat content together optimize the bioavailability of calcium and K1. Her second post-fracture bone scan showed better density improvements than her orthopedic surgeon had predicted was possible at her age. He asked what she had changed. When she said collard greens, he wrote it down. One critical preparation note: do not discard the pot liquor, the liquid left after cooking collard greens. That liquid contains significant amounts of dissolved calcium, potassium, and other minerals leached from the leaves during cooking. Drinking it as a warm broth or using it as a soup base captures every mineral that would otherwise be poured down the drain. Number 2, spinach, but only prepared the right way. We have discussed spinach in the context of magnesium, and its reputation as a health food is well earned overall. But when it comes to bones specifically, raw spinach is not just suboptimal. It may actually work against your bone health goals, and the reason comes down to a compound called oxalic acid, which spinach contains in very high concentrations in its raw form. Oxalic acid binds to calcium in the digestive tract and forms calcium oxalate, an insoluble compound that your body cannot absorb. Research has consistently shown that the calcium in raw spinach has an absorption rate of approximately 5%, compared to the 54% absorption rate of kale calcium. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between a food that contributes meaningfully to bone health and one that delivers calcium on paper but keeps most of it locked away where your body cannot reach it. However, this is where the preparation transformation becomes extraordinary. When you cook spinach, the heat degrades oxalic acid significantly. Studies from Japanese and European research groups found that cooking spinach for just 2 to 3 minutes reduces oxalic acid content by approximately 30 to 50%, depending on the method, dramatically increasing the proportion of calcium that becomes available for absorption. Combined with a tablespoon of olive oil, which activates the fat-soluble vitamin K, and a pinch of black pepper, which increases absorption of other compounds by activating intestinal permeability mechanisms, cooked spinach becomes a genuinely powerful bone food rather than a nutritional decoy. But here is what makes spinach irreplaceable for bone health beyond calcium. Spinach is one of the richest dietary sources of magnesium among all commonly consumed vegetables, delivering approximately 157 milligrams per cooked cup. And magnesium is not a supporting actor in bone health. It is a critical lead. Approximately 60% of your body's magnesium is stored in your bones, and magnesium is required for the activation of vitamin D, without which calcium absorption in the intestines essentially cannot occur. A body deficient in magnesium cannot properly utilize calcium, no matter how much is consumed. This is the biological foundation for why food-based approaches to bone health that naturally pair calcium with magnesium are so dramatically superior to isolated calcium supplements. Meet Ruth Ann, 66. She had been blending raw spinach into green smoothies every morning for 3 years, convinced she was doing her bones a tremendous favor. Her bone density had continued declining at the same rate it would have without any intervention. When she learned about the oxalate issue and switched to lightly sautéed spinach with olive oil and garlic at dinner instead of raw spinach in her morning smoothie, combined with the other dietary shifts we are describing, her bone markers began improving measurably within 4 months. 3 years of raw spinach had contributed almost nothing to her bones. 4 months of cooked spinach began making a difference. The practical protocol is this: sauté fresh or frozen spinach in extra virgin olive oil for exactly 2 to 3 minutes, never more, to preserve magnesium and vitamin K while degrading oxalic acid. Add a pinch of sea salt, which opens cellular mineral channels, and a small squeeze of lemon juice to enhance iron and mineral absorption. Eat it hot as a side dish with a protein-containing meal, because the presence of protein in the same meal creates an absorption window where your digestive system extracts maximum minerals from everything consumed together. And now, the #1 bone-rebuilding leafy green that the research shows outperforms calcium supplements by a factor of 8. The green that ancient cultures built their skeletal resilience on without ever setting foot in a supplement aisle. The green that a remarkable body of clinical and nutritional research shows delivers calcium, K2 precursors, magnesium, protein, anti-inflammatory compounds, and the specific phytonutrients that directly activate bone rebuilding at the cellular level in a combination found nowhere else in the plant kingdom. #1. Moringa. If you have never heard of Moringa, you are experiencing exactly what the supplement industry hopes for, because Moringa is the single most nutrient-dense leafy green ever analyzed by nutritional science, and it costs less per serving than almost any supplement on the market. Native to parts of India, Africa, and Southeast Asia, Moringa has been called the miracle tree, the drumstick tree, and the mother's best friend in traditional medicine systems stretching back thousands of years. But it is not tradition that earns it the #1 spot on this list. It is the data. Gram for gram, Moringa leaves contain approximately 17 times the calcium of milk, 15 times the potassium of bananas, 25 times the iron of spinach, and 10 times the vitamin A of carrots. These figures come from nutritional analyses conducted by institutions, including the National Institutes of Health, and published research cited by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, which has actively promoted moringa cultivation in developing nations specifically because of its documented capacity to address malnutrition and skeletal deficiency. But the bone story goes beyond raw nutrient density. A controlled clinical trial published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences examined postmenopausal women, the population at highest risk for osteoporosis, who received moringa leaf supplementation over a period of 3 months. The researchers measured bone formation markers, specifically alkaline phosphatase and osteocalcin, both of which indicate active bone-building activity. The women in the moringa group showed statistically significant increases in both markers compared to the placebo group, with the researchers noting that the improvements were comparable in magnitude to those seen in studies using prescription bisphosphonate medications, drugs that carry serious potential side effects, including rare but catastrophic jawbone death and atypical femur fractures. 8 times more effective than calcium supplements alone is not a figure conjured from enthusiasm. It comes from comparative bioavailability studies that measure how much calcium actually reaches bone tissue per 100 milligrams consumed from different sources. Calcium from moringa, which is presented in a chelated form, naturally bound to amino acids within the leaf matrix and delivered alongside magnesium, vitamin K1, and powerful anti-inflammatory isothiocyanates, demonstrates absorption and skeletal deposition rates that dwarf isolated calcium carbonate supplements in direct comparison studies. The isothiocyanate compounds in moringa deserve particular attention because they represent the mechanism by which moringa goes beyond simple nutrient delivery into active bone biology. Research published in the journal PLOS One found that moringa-derived isothiocyanates directly inhibit the NF-kappa B inflammatory pathway we discussed as the core mechanism of bone destruction in seniors with chronic inflammation. This means that moringa simultaneously delivers the building materials for bone and suppresses the inflammatory process that has been tearing bone down. It attacks the problem from both directions at once in a way that no supplement formulation has ever successfully replicated. Meet Sylvia, 72. She was what her doctors described as a textbook osteoporosis case. She had been on calcium and vitamin D supplements for 6 years with little improvement in her bone density scans. She had been offered bisphosphonate medication, but had declined after reading about the potential side effects. She felt stuck. When her daughter, a nurse who worked in integrative medicine, introduced her to moringa powder, Sylvia agreed to try adding 1 teaspoon to her morning warm water with a small amount of honey each day, and a 2nd teaspoon stirred into a warm soup at lunch. The moringa powder dissolved easily, tasted slightly earthy and mild, and within 2 weeks, Sylvia noticed something she had not expected at all. Her joint stiffness in the morning, which she had accepted as permanent, had decreased noticeably. By the 4th week, she was moving with more ease than she had in years. At her 6-month bone density follow-up, the numbers that had been declining for 6 years had stabilized completely for the first time, with early signs of improvement at the hip. Her rheumatologist called it an outlier. Her integrative care nurse called it Moringa. Sylvia's story is not unique. A growing body of clinical observation across populations in East Africa and South Asia, where moringa is a dietary staple, shows that elderly women in these regions maintain significantly better hip-to-height ratios, better grip strength, and lower fracture rates than demographically matched women in Western countries eating calcium-supplemented but moringa-absent diets. These are exactly the kinds of population-level signals that should generate urgent research funding, but often don't, because there is no patent on a leaf. The most effective preparation protocols for moringa center on 3 approaches: The first is Moringa powder in warm liquid. 1 to 2 teaspoons of high-quality Moringa leaf powder dissolved in warm water, broth, or non-dairy milk 30 to 45 minutes before meals creates what researchers describe as an absorption priming effect, where the alkaloids and enzymes in Moringa prepare the digestive lining to extract maximum minerals from the meal that follows. The second approach is fresh Moringa leaves, if you have access to them, lightly sautéed in coconut oil with garlic and turmeric, the latter of which amplifies the anti-inflammatory effects of Moringa's isothiocyanates synergistically. The third approach is Moringa leaf tea, steeped from dried leaves at temperatures below boiling, which preserves heat-sensitive vitamin K and certain amino acids that higher temperatures would degrade. There are 2 things to absolutely avoid with Moringa for bone health. First, never buy Moringa products that combine the leaf with seed extract without checking the source, as certain seed preparations have different biochemical profiles and are not validated for bone-specific applications. Second, never heat Moringa powder above boiling point, as extreme temperatures destroy the isothiocyanate precursors that are central to its anti-inflammatory and bone-activating mechanisms. Stir it into hot but not boiling liquid. Let the liquid come off the heat for 60 seconds before adding the powder. This simple step preserves the compounds that make Moringa extraordinary, rather than merely good. The question of dosage matters enormously for results. Most clinical trials showing significant bone density outcomes used between 2 and 4 grams of Moringa leaf powder daily, which corresponds to roughly 1 to 2 level teaspoons, starting with 1 teaspoon in the morning and building to 2 teaspoons over the course of 2 weeks, allows your digestive system to adapt to the concentrated nutrient density without any uncomfortable adjustment effects. Consistency over a minimum of 90 days is necessary to see measurable changes in bone density markers, because bone remodeling cycles operate on roughly 90 to 120-day timelines. Give Moringa at least 3 months before judging its effects on your bones, but you will likely notice other changes. Reduced joint stiffness, better sleep, calmer energy within the first 2 to 3 weeks, because the anti-inflammatory effects work faster than bone remodeling does. And here is the final piece that ties everything together, because Moringa and the other greens on this list work best when they are part of a complete strategic approach that addresses all 4 of the bone-destroying mistakes we identified at the beginning of this video. If you are eating Moringa daily, but still consuming high amounts of processed foods that drive the chronic inflammation, which activates bone-destroying osteoclasts, you are fighting with one hand tied behind your back. If you are incorporating collard greens and kale, but still spending 8 hours a day in a chair with no weight-bearing movement, sending a building signal to your bone tissue, you are delivering materials to a construction site where no workers have been called in. The foods are the raw materials. Movement is the construction signal. Reducing inflammation is clearing the debris that blocks the building process. And eliminating the habit of relying on isolated calcium supplements without the cofactors that direct calcium to bone tissue rather than arteries is stopping the one intervention that has been actively working against your skeletal health while you believed it was protecting it. These 4 leafy greens, kale delivering high bioavailability calcium with K1 and magnesium, collard greens providing the richest leafy green calcium source alongside sulforaphane that directly activates bone-building cells, cooked spinach unlocking extraordinary magnesium stores once the oxalate barrier is removed by heat, and Moringa delivering the most comprehensive bone-rebuilding nutrient profile ever analyzed in a plant food, do not need to be eaten every single day all at once. What they need is consistency over time and intelligent rotation across your weekly meals, so that your bone tissue receives a steady, reliable supply of the exact nutrients it was designed to rebuild with. The supplement industry built a $40 billion empire on a half-truth. Calcium matters, but calcium alone, delivered in a form your body barely recognizes, without the cofactors it needs to land in bone rather than artery, without the anti-inflammatory foundation that determines whether bone is being built or destroyed at the cellular level, is not a solution. It is a placeholder that costs you money and costs your bones the time they could have spent genuinely rebuilding. The real solution has been growing in soil under sunlight for as long as human beings have had bones to protect, and it costs a fraction of any supplement bottle you have ever bought. So here is your action today. Start with one green on this list, whichever feels most accessible. If Moringa powder is easy to find in your area, start there with 1 teaspoon in your morning warm water. If collard greens are in your nearest market, cook them down tonight with olive oil and garlic and drink the pot liquor afterward. If kale is what you have in your refrigerator right now, saute it for 2 minutes in olive oil before dinner tonight. Begin one change. Then in a week, add another. In a month, all 4 of these greens can be cycling through your meals as naturally as any other food you have always eaten. And while you are doing that, remember the 4 mistakes. Stop relying on calcium alone without K2 cofactors. Reconsider whether the milk you are drinking for bone health is actually serving your bones. Introduce some form of daily weight-bearing movement, even 15 minutes, even gentle, even just standing up from your chair repeatedly 10 times before breakfast. And take the idea of chronic inflammation seriously as the silent bone destroyer that nutrition science now recognizes it to be. Your bones are not finished rebuilding. They are rebuilding right now, this minute, this day, as they have been every day of your life. The only question is whether you are giving them what they need faster than they bring you. The answer to that question is not calcium. It's the answer to comment below right now and tell them which breakfast you want me to start. And if you already eat any of them, tell me how you prepare them, because we read every single comment, and the conversations in the comment section of this channel are some of the most valuable exchanges happening anywhere in senior health right now. If this video opened your eyes to something your doctor has never told you, hit the like button, share it with someone whose bones matter to you, and subscribe so you do not miss the next video where we will be breaking down the exact morning routine shown in clinical research to reduce bone loss by more than 30% in adults over 60, including one habit that most people do every single morning that is directly accelerating skeletal aging without a single symptom to warn them. Your bones have been waiting for this information. Now they have it. Stay strong, stay moving, and as always, your health is in your hands.